Earlier today, there was a poll made on the Sekeres and Price Twitter account that I liked a lot, and I wanted to go out there and make a video about this because this is something that I think many Canucks fans have been sort of paying attention to. Like, if you've been paying attention to the Stanley Cup Playoffs, one of these guys is still playing, and he's doing very, very well. Take a look at this post made by Sekeres and Price. It includes a poll, which at the time of recording this audio has 1,500 votes. Who would you rather have Quinn Hughes alongside next season? And if you go over to the responses, 39.9% of Canucks fans say that Filip Hronek is the guy they want, 50.9% of the fans say Chris Tanev, and 9.2% say other. This is an idea of Chris Tanev and whether or not he could be a Vancouver Canuck again alongside of Quinn Hughes replacing Filip Hronek. Now, I wanted to address the elephant in the room about this topic right off the bat. The first reply goes out there and says the same thing too. Hey, what are we doing here? Tanev is 35 in December. This fan base is out to lunch. And I wanted to address that concern in particular, as well as go over why 50% of Canucks fans that voted on this poll say that they would like Chris Tanev in spite of that. Or maybe not even in spite of that. Maybe some Canucks fans just don't really know that he's that old. Who really knows? But either way, when I think about Chris Tanev in 2024, I don't think about any of his time in Vancouver. I think about what he's doing now. Because Chris Tanev has been arguably the biggest acquisition the Dallas Stars have made in a long time with his addition onto that blue line. We'd already made a video a few days ago talking about how he's officially a problem, how he had shut down Jack Eichel in round 1, he had shut down Nathan MacKinnon in round 2, and now in round 3, he's going head-to-head against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Tanev was a guy who, playing those big minutes against those top stars in the earlier rounds, actually excelled and did fantastic work. This is a guy who, at 34 years old, he's still gone out there and showed that quality defensive shutdown hockey can be played with the precision, calmness, and cohesion like Chris Tanev can bring. It's almost like he's a one-in-a-million kind of player. It's really difficult to find guys who are just that gosh darn good defensively. And the funny part is, when Tanev was with Vancouver in his final days with the Canucks, he actually didn't play with Quinn Hughes. Hughes was playing with Schenn in that 2019-20 season. Tanev mostly was playing with Alex Edler at that time. So there never really was an overlap between Tanev and Hughes at any point, because Tanev's last season with Vancouver was Quinn Hughes' first. That was the year that Hughes was nominated for the Calder and everything in between. And after Chris Tanev ended up leaving, this is when he started to actually play a lot more games. And I say that because Tanev, unfortunately, was never the healthiest during his time in Vancouver. He had 50 games played seasons, 40 game played seasons, another 50 in there, and then 69 games played in the shutdown COVID year. But the seasons after that, 56 games played with the Calgary Flames, 82 games played with the Calgary Flames. He had started to rack up those games. And then he had a little bit of a setback in 22-23, but this season he went back to playing pretty much a full season. I mean, he had 56 games played with Calgary this season, 19 in Dallas, so that's 75 games played on the year. Not a full 82, but considering the trade and considering the slow progression of the Flames, it's understandable. He also has 17 games in the playoffs so far, too, with only 1 assist. But if you take a look at what Tanev has been up to, I mean, he was logging 25-minute games against the Edmonton Oilers. In the most previous game, he only had 8 minutes, and he was actually seen walking around with a boot afterwards. So who knows if Chris Tanev is hurt now. But for the most part, bearing any sort of significant verdict on what happened to him yesterday, Chris Tanev may not be made of glass as much as he had been in the past. Maybe they got some fiberglass mixed in there too. Not saying, of course, that if Tanev signs in Vancouver, he would play 82 games guaranteed, but I'm just saying, like, the concern about him potentially not being healthy all the time, while it is there, I think it's not as big of a deal this time around compared to when Tanev was a Canuck the entire time. You also have to remember that back when Tanev was a Canuck, he was like maybe one of the top guys on the team consistently in ice time for defensemen, so he was getting big minutes, he was getting big playing time, and Not saying that he wouldn't be getting that with Quinn Hughes, but if you wanted to talk about the defensive depth on this team, depending on who else they keep around, maybe Chris Tanev playing more of a defensive style would allow Quinn Hughes to be a bit more ambitious on offense. Maybe it allows Hughes to get more points, and as a result, if he's scoring more points, the Canucks are in the lead more, then maybe he doesn't need to play as much. I think it's kind of a weird train of thought to go down, but I do think that Filip Hronek, being the offensive dynamo that he was, made Quinn Hughes' job just a little bit more difficult defensively speaking. Because while Hughes would be going around doing his offensive stuff, he would also have to subconsciously worry about what's going on the back end. Chris Tanev, being his partner instead, makes it so that he doesn't need to think about that. If Hughes can explore his offense more, it could result in more goals scored for Vancouver. They're in the lead more in these games, and as a result, Hughes doesn't need to play as much. They can just go with the shutdown lines, Myers, Soucy, Juleson, and whomever else they decide to bring back. So there is sort of a weird train of thought that I go down when I think about Tanev coming to Vancouver and what a role like his could provide Quinn Hughes on the right side. But there also is that argument as to whether or not Filip Hronek really should be brought back or not anyway, too. He was very good with Quinn Hughes, arguably the best partner Hughes has ever had. But there is that dollar amount that I think is still perturbing me. I don't really feel comfortable with that idea of $8 million, and depending on how high Patrick Allvin is able to go, I'm not too sure if it's really a super attainable job to re-sign Hronek at a number that everyone's going to be happy with. So if you can save some money, let's say you get Tanev for $4 million instead, or 3.5. Let's say he really wants to come back and he takes a deal for the Canucks. If you're able to save $4-5 million on Quinn Hughes' defense partner, then that's money that you could allocate elsewhere. You could use that to get another really good depth option in your middle to bottom six. You could get another depth defenseman, so it's not Noah Juleson playing 82 games in a season, or you could use that money to re-sign Zadorov. Who really knows? Like, there's a lot of options here with Vancouver if they have extra dollars. So with Filip Hronek being the tremendous ask that he is giving out, it kind of gets me wondering, what if they just went with somebody a lot cheaper and who could provide maybe similar value? Not saying that Chris Tanev is going to get 40 points in a season, but the value that Tanev brings defensively, which would be better than everybody else in the team, you could say the magnitude of that positive value is as good as Filip Hronek's offense. And that's just kind of an argument that I think people are going to disagree about, but it's what I think, so I wanted to say it here in a video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of Chris Tanev coming back. Whether or not he's injured, that also will change the narrative about him. Like, I'm fully aware of that. He only played 8 minutes in the previous game. He did take some extra time off, and he was seen in a boot, so who knows if Tanev does get injured, if he's out for the rest of the playoffs. Knock on wood, of course, he is not, and he'll just come back in Game 5 healthy and normally, but injuries and age have been the two things against the idea of bringing Chris Tanev back to Vancouver this entire time. How he was always injured in Vancouver, and now he is 34 years old, but at the end of the day, they made it work with Luke Schenn. They made it work somewhat with Ian Cole this year. The Vancouver Canucks know what it takes to play these older, aging veteran defensemen and actually have them be useful. So could Chris Tanev provide some sort of a similar impact? If you're a Canucks fan, if you're a Dallas Stars fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about your thoughts on Tanev. Do you want to see this man back with the Vancouver Canucks? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.